Shabbat shalom, everybody. Okay. Let's get this thing set. So, as a Torah reader and a former professional performer, I've always enjoyed the challenge and the beauty of chanting from the Torah. Singing the beautiful melodies, trying to find and absorb the patterns of the tropes, bringing the words to life for others, and achieving personal ownership of sections of our holy story, all have made this task so valuable to me. But it wasn't until a few years ago, when reading the Torah for this week's Parshat, Toldot, that I had an experience of deeply feeling what I was reading. My performance of laning, Yiddish for reading, had previously focused on being accurate and melodic, but not on necessarily connecting emotionally to the words I was reading. This new experience came about the first time I read Esav's words to his father Yitzchak, right after he tells him that his brother Yaakov had duped him out of the blessing. When Esav heard this, his father's confirmation of this, he cried out with an extremely loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me also, my father." Chanting the words of Esav as a Torah reader, I found myself embodying Esav's cry. The narration of his cry alone is enough to break your heart, but once the text quotes his own words, the effect is immediate and visceral. His insistent repetitions further emphasize Esav's feelings of being left behind, second best. Bless me, also me. It's a heartbreaking moment. Now, while our rabbis often took great pains in the Midrash to make Esav look like a villain who deserved to be duped, the Torah's language, at least in this moment, seems to want us to empathize with Esav, to feel the injustice dealt him by Rivka and Yaakov. Beyond his quoted words, the Torah goes out of its way to describe Esav's cry not only as loud and bitter, but also adds that it was extremely so. Why should a character who deserves no sympathy be described as crying out in so intense a way? It's curious that many of our great commentators, Rashi, Ibn Ezra, Ramban, who usually have so much negativity to cast upon Esav, are silent on this verse. To me, it's a subtle acknowledgement that this moment doesn't quite fit so neatly in their picture of a bloodthirsty, amoral person. Indeed, in a rare departure from the usual pattern, our rabbis in a midrash on this parsha in Genesis Rabbah clearly recognize the damage inflicted on Esav by his brother. The midrash reads, "Anyone who claims that the Holy One, blessed be He, is overly lenient will forfeit his life. Rather, God is slow to anger. And as a demonstration, Yaakov caused Esav to cry a single cry. As it is written, as Esav heard the words of his father, he cried out." And where was he called to account for this? In Shushan, the capital of Persia. As it is written, Mordechai went through the city crying out with an extremely loud and bitter cry because of Haman's decree to destroy the Jews. In a sharp intertextual reading, this midrash points out the close similarity of the description of Mordechai's cry in the book of Esther with that of Esav in our parsha, claiming that it demonstrates that what Yaakov did to Esav was indeed wrong and deserving of punishment. The pain that was caused Esav inevitably became our own pain, even if it took several generations for the backlash to materialize. Where so often our rabbis only recognize our own people's merit and pain, while characterizing people outside of our family as enemies, this midrash recognizes that the cry of Esav cannot be drashed out of existence. It is our own pain. It is a recognition that a wrong was perpetrated and that Esav's pain was real and legitimate. Now, why did this cycle of hurt and punishment have to come into being in the first place? Perhaps we can look to the fact that Yaakov and Esav's relationship from the outset was founded on the idea that their individual success must be to the detriment of the other. When Rebekah suffered in pain from pregnancy, she seeks out God only to hear the message, "Two nations will emerge from your loins, one nation will be stronger than the other." Now, even with the ambiguity of the message, it still states that one child's elevation must be to the other's detriment. Only one could have the birthright. Only one the blessing. And yet, one of the few notable commentators who does comment on this verse, the 19th century scholar Meir Labush ben Yechiel Michel, or the Malbim, opens the possibility of another understanding of the situation, embedded in Esav's request to also be blessed. He asks rhetorically from the point of view of Isaac, is not a father able to bless all his children with success, stability, and all good things? This is a question worth asking. And indeed, Isaac does subsequently recognize that blessing is not a zero-sum game when he goes on to give Esav his own blessing. This additional blessing can be given equally, even if received second. Our success as individuals, as a community, and as a people does not have to be at the expense of those outside of our orbit. We can cheer on their success and happiness even as we seek our own with equal vigor. And a major key to recognizing that true blessing must be shared equally by all is the recognition that other people hurt too, and that we sometimes may be the source of their pain. Even with the best intentions, we can still cause damage to others on the way to achieving our goals. Our work as a people and as a community, then, is to minimize that damage and acknowledge the pain we cause when we get caught up in our own advancement. This is what Rebekah and Jacob were missing when they hatched this plan. They thought only of their own goals, their own elevation, and they were willing to cause a great deal of suffering to their own family members because of it. But their logic was flawed. There was no such thing as too little blessing. They just needed to understand to see others in their own family as different, but no less deserving of blessing. They needed to see that any suffering caused to someone you see as outside your group inevitably comes back to you, as we are all connected. In our world, we must all ultimately realize that true success only occurs when we lift up not only ourselves, but all those around us. We must fight for blessing to reach all in this world. Only then will we merit to be truly blessed with all good things. Shabbat Shalom.